to them, it's just normal. It's like if your house is always dirty, it's normal to you. Your house is just always dirty. It doesn't make it,
Our house always
I don't
dirty.
know. It's passive aggressive. If no one cleans your house, but no, if your house is always dirty, it just kind of blends in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Rising Marriage Podcast. This is episode 1. We're so excited to start this off. You know me, I'm Chris Rodack with Rising Father. I've got my own podcast, but you may not know my wife, Sara Rodack. So she's been starting kind of like a marriage brand with me called Rising Marriage over the past couple of weeks. And she's basically been doing this for years on her own anyway, with friends, family. A lot of her close friends look to her for advice, for marriage, for just being an awesome person with integrity who can help them and help them grow in their relationships. And a lot of people look to her for advice. So she started a brand called Rising Marriage that we are doing together. So we said, hey, let's start a podcast, and it'll be really helpful for people. And it'll also be great for us to kind of just spend, it's kind of like a date night for us. This is just more time for us to connect and chill. Welcome. Welcome, Sara.
Thanks, babe. That was quite the introduction. Yeah, I'm really excited to be doing this with you because it's kind of cool to do something together that we've already been building for years and years naturally on our own. So it's kind of fun to bring it out there to other people that I don't know face to face and help people in different ways.
And it may look out there like we're a little bit further apart, but in reality, we're extremely close to each other.
No, his legs
she's
like
she's like a
on my
foot from my
chair.
face. So we're gonna have to get some more cameras, but we have one camera right now. So this is how it is.
Our first
First
podcast is on
podcast.
personal space.
Yeah. When I did the first Rising Father podcast, I recorded it 4 or 5 times. So I spent 5 hours doing a 40-minute podcast. It's horrible. That wasn't horrible. It was okay. But I did a lot of takes of it, and I just had to be perfect about it. So like we're not doing that. We're just getting started. We're
We're just
doing
doing it.
episode 1. We've been posting on our Rising Marriage Instagram account for a couple of weeks now, where we're going to go through some of those topics, some of the most requested topics. And we did polls for our community that people wanted to know about. And then one of the number one things they asked was, or they were concerned about, was communication. A lot of couples out there have trouble with communication.
Yeah, that was like the number one thing that people talked about. So we thought that'd be a perfect place to start. But communication is so huge. So there's like a million different outlets with communication. So we're just going to kind of dabble in some of the, ones that are the most talked about with everyone that communicates with us.
So, what was one of the biggest issues people were bringing up with communication?
One of the biggest ones was how you talk to your spouse when you are not with them and when you're with them. So there's like definitely different vibes that people have when they're talking to their spouse versus when their spouse isn't there. So kind of how they talk about their spouse and how a lot of times it's not always in a positive light. So that can cause a lot of resentment that people kind of make up on their own because of how they talk to about their spouse whenever they're not with them.
When does that, and this is kind of like me interviewing you right now, but that's okay.
All right.
When does that tend to happen? Now, you have to name, don't have to name any names, anything like that, but like in general, where do you see spouses talking about each other in a negative light?
Well, I'm going to be real with you. So I can only talk about what I know, and I'm not at guys' nights. And I'm pretty sure most guys don't talk about their spouse at all at guys' nights because you guys are doing your own. I don't know what guys do, play golf, whatever guys do. But I feel like at girls' nights or girls' get togethers, I hear it a lot, and it's not always meant to be that it's like coming from a bad place. I think people are like venting, which I totally get, that is part of like being a friend, but it kind of can get to a point where it goes too far and becomes toxic, where the way that you talk about your spouse like really is so important, because even if your spouse isn't ever going to hear what you say about them when they're not there, it actually kind of starts to, the more you do that and you're speaking negatively, it kind of like changes your mind and your perspective on your spouse, because you start to, talk shit on them so much that you start to believe that, even if it like actually isn't true. It can be from like one, like your spouse was annoying and something that they did super annoyed you, but then for whatever reason, you went to a girls' night and you vented about that one thing, and then someone else makes a connection. And then before you know it, there's all these connections and everyone's kind of like talking shit on their husband. And then you start to like, get all fired up a little bit about your spouse when like you just escalated one little thought into something bigger. Do you know what I mean?
It's kind of like in your head.
Yeah. And it becomes like super toxic, and it can affect other people too, because the more that, you're kind of complaining, I guess you could say, about your spouse, it can turn from something so little. We're all human. We're all going to complain mentally or something.
I don't complain.
Lies. But you don't really that much, but like, like it could be like something so little that someone's like, oh, I can't stand when, I clean the whole kitchen and then my spouse walks in and puts a dish when the dishwasher is clearly filled with dirty dishes.
Never happened.
So like you could say that, and it's just such an innocent thing that literally doesn't matter. Like it does not matter that they do that because it doesn't affect you. But like whatever reason, it like annoyed you, you tell your group, and it escalates from that to like all these crazy things that like somebody else starts to say about their husband.
Because then it's kind of a competition as to who. You go from people who had nothing to say, and then all of a sudden the conversation turns to bitching about your husband or wife, and then it's like, oh, this is my time to shine and get attention. Let me say the most outlandish thing about my husband or wife, so then I can win this part of the conversation.
Yeah, that's like exactly right. And I like definitely found myself doing that in the past, like years in the past, because it was like the social norm. And I hate saying that. But like, I'm talking years ago, there would be like moments, mine were never bad. It could be like the dirty dish. But then as it escalated, I literally would be like, oh, this is getting weird. You know what I mean? And like now, I feel like sometimes I work really hard to say nothing, because then if you're in the moment and you're like, say something nice about your husband, then you're like, yeah, it's kind of like you ruined the vibe, and you're like now I'm the weird one, which is unfortunate, but kind of awesome at the same time. I want to be that kind of weird, but also like our marriage isn't perfect either. And there's also things that you could share, and I'm sure we'll share on this podcast of things that we've done in the past, but you got to find the time and place, and you got to find the reason why you want to bring that up. Because I feel like sometimes too, like when you're in that kind of moment, it's like, is this doing me good for sharing this, or am I just trying to fit what people are trying to want me to say?
It can be such a temptation to just get attention. And if you're a naturally dramatic person, you can just really want to say the most, once again, outlandish thing, and it becomes addicting.
Yeah.
People just I say a story about an innocent story about you, and you've been kind of quietly standing there in a corner with nothing to say. You say, oh, this is my time to shine. You say the next thing, and you try to win the moment.
There's like a recent time that I was hanging out with friends, like in the past year. And it made me feel like, if you guys remember the movie Mean Girls, which is like one of my favorites from a long time ago. And they have that moment where like Regina George is in front of the mirror and they all say one thing that they don't like about their bodies. And then the main girl goes, my breath smells weird in the morning. And they all look at her like really weird. I literally felt like that because we were at like a girls' night, and I chuckled in my head because everyone was like, slam something, something, something. And then I was like, I don't even remember what it was, but it was something so silly that I was like, yeah, sometimes, I don't even know what I said, but everyone just kind of like, it went silent.
Do you feel like this is a more girl thing than boy thing?
I do. I unfortunately do. I think that it can be a boy thing or a guy thing, a dude thing, depending on personality traits. But I think unfortunately, girls are more gossipy by nature. And I think there's a weird like competitiveness sometimes.
You're gonna make some people angry with this.
I'm sorry, ladies. I love you all. I love women, empower women, all the things. But I think we have to be realistic too, of like, this happens. And I think any girl who watched this would probably agree with me on all of this because we see it happen. I'm not saying men don't do it, but I think also there's like part of the communication process that I see with men and women. But again, I can only speak for myself. There's like this massive, like passive aggressive type of communication that I do see like more on the women's side too. And I think like because of that, when you do the hangouts, like because they're so passive aggressive, it's like they fester things and then it comes out in the girls' night events, which is like a them problem, not necessarily a couple's problem. Like they need to work on learning how to communicate as a human being.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff comes down to you being able to just be a better person. It does happen on the guy side too. I've definitely been in it with colleagues and men who are kind of basically it comes down to if you're miserable in your own life, you're going to be miserable with your partner.
Yeah.
And if you don't like who you are, if you don't like who you become, you're going to probably bitch about your spouse.
Yeah.
Because then that's going to impact your relationship with them, and you're going to be if you're miserable with yourself, you're going to be miserable with someone else. You're going to be miserable at home, miserable with your kids. And a lot of this stuff comes down to just improving yourself, working on yourself.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge too, because I think we could like completely change the topic of the podcast at this point with personal growth. But I think a lot of people like are so quick to.
Was that passive aggressive towards me?
I don't know.
You be the judge.
I wasn't trying to. I really was like,
Said I was changing the topic.
I said,
We'll see
pause.
what people say.
Oh my goodness gracious. I'm just saying that it's such a good point that we could completely change topics because it's that important.
Okay.
That's truly what I meant. Truly what I meant. But the reason I'm saying that is because I think people are so quick to like want to blame like literally something for every single problem that goes on. And like for communication, I feel like if I think of people that reach out to us for help and we talk about communicating and things like that, a lot of times some of those big problems that they have with communicating come from not being able to work on themselves to learn like how do I talk to people. Like instead of me saying like you're not doing this, like here's XYZ, all these reasons why I'm frustrated at you. But like if I take a pause and be like, well, how am I talking to my husband? Like, am I degrading when I talk to them? Do I talk down to them in front of other people? And, they're going to lose respect for me because I'm disrespecting them when I talk to them. But like, meanwhile, what I can control is myself. That's the only thing you can ever control is truly yourself. So like, if you're not loving something, a lot of times you need to like look in the mirror and be like, dude, I suck at talking to my spouse. I need to change this. Listen to how I talk. Think before I speak, because that's the big problem. So that's a me problem, but now I'm making it an us problem. You know what I mean?
And sometimes you don't realize that. Like you just go through life not really understanding what you come off like. And you think you sound a certain way. And then if you were in someone else's body looking at you, you'd be surprised at how you look and how you sound. I mean, some people think they're very outgoing people, and then whenever you look at them, they're really not.
Yeah.
Or if you're at a party and they're, you could be someone's spouse, maybe they're your friend, and then they're married and they might think they have a great relationship and they're nice to each other, but then as soon as they turn the corner, they're talking shit on the person.
Yeah.
Like all that stuff can happen. So I've been at some parties where some guys are around and they bring up someone else's wife. Like it'll be me and some guys, like close friends or not close friends, doesn't matter. But you bring up someone else's wife. And it's really awkward whenever they bring up your wife. Like that's happened too. Like someone will bring up you, like, well, my wife, lucky for you, my wife doesn't do what Sarah does. or it could be about someone else's wife. So they'll intentionally bring up another person's wife in front of a group of people publicly and degrade their own wife and say, why isn't she like this other person? And when they do that, they are in their head creating this narrative and story of their own wife, and they think about that every day. That colors the way they talk to them, think about them once again, and act towards them. And you got to be so careful about that, because if you have this story of someone in your head that's playing over and over again, you start to believe it, and it starts to color every interaction you have with them. But so you talk about someone else's wife, you compare your wife to someone else's wife, or vice versa with the husband in front of people, and then it degrades you, degrades your wife, and then it makes everyone in the room basically feel uncomfortable and awkward.
Oh, yeah.
Has that ever happened to you?
Absolutely. You know, it could be like a simple, like, I wish my husband would, I don't know, work out like Chris does. Because you're like getting ripped, all that. You know, girls are getting jealous. But
Now you made it awkward.
I had to, because you said it gets awkward. So I had to make it awkward.
It was.
But I'm just saying, like, yes, I've seen that happen whenever, you know, certain girls will say something like, I wish my husband. Oh, I have a great memory here. So you threw me a fantastic surprise birthday party.
Yes, I did.
When I turned 35 this past year. And it was just such a big to do. It was like incredible. And
describe it a little bit.
It was so good. So first off, it was, I literally can't believe you pulled it off. How many people did we have there?
70 or 80.
Yeah. It was like a lot of people. I had no idea. Our kids even knew, which was crazy to me that they didn't tell me. I still can't believe it. But you rented out, like Chris rented out like this barn, which is totally my style. It was gorgeous. Catered food, music, dancing, a bonfire and s'mores. Like it was literally like a second wedding, in my opinion, of like incredible. It was just like all my favorite things in one spot and all my favorite people. It was amazing. But, you know, I guess like I find out after the fact how he did this, and he had like a Facebook group and like was messaging people, and like it was just crazy, all of the things that you did to pull this off. It was amazing. And just even that itself, that you did that and were and thought of me and like made all these little tiny details, like that was amazing, more than the whole party, because it just was like extremely thoughtful, like so thoughtful. But anyways, it was great. And there were some people who couldn't make it, which, you know, was a bummer, but it was fine because there was like so many people there. And afterwards, I did have, you know, I heard comments from different people that would be like, I wish my spouse would do something like that for me, but they never would do something like that because they are not that thoughtful. Mm. And it like made me feel so bad because like, well, maybe they are that thoughtful, but like,
don't give them a chance.
You don't give them a chance. And maybe they saw this surprise party and it would give them an idea that maybe you would like a surprise party. But then it was from that one comment, like it almost like also takes away from like your shining moment, that they're trying to make it like now their thing. And I feel like that sometimes happens, and it's like so awkward for, like you said, it always ends just awkward for anyone that's involved in the conversation. You know what I mean? But it also is like, it's just so disrespectful and rude to just assume your spouse isn't capable of doing something like that. Because again, going back to that whole like personal growth thing, like maybe you kind of talk shitty to them all the time that they don't want to do that for you. Or maybe you're so controlling that they're like, there's no way that they would definitely find out because they have to know every single thing that I do. You know what I mean? That you don't give any of that leeway, because like for that party, you literally were like, I'm golfing for the day.
Yeah.
And I was like, have fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it was like, I didn't think twice of it because I also don't mind when you go do fun things. You know what I mean?
That's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a whole other thing. So like some people wouldn't be able to pull that off because they literally like couldn't leave the house for a day without it being like this whole freaking thing. You know what I mean? But I mean, I went off on a little tangent there, but I mean, that whole like scenario was like 4,000 things in one.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, the habits that we have, the good habits that we had, let it happen. Because had we not had that relationship where I could say, hey, I'm going to go golfing. And you're like, okay, cool. Because a lot of, I don't want to go down this tangent for 20 minutes, but a lot of people don't have that ability to do. But I was able to easily do that, easily wrangle the kids. The kids knew about it for months, didn't say anything.
Doesn't that like terrify you as them becoming teenagers that they kept that secret from me? Like so well.
Yeah, I mean, like for 2 months, and Nathan was what, 8 at that point?
8 years old.
And Lauren was 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 8 and 6 years old for like months they had it.
And they tell me everything. I can't believe
it.
Like everything.
And the whole day we had like 20 people in there decorating and cleaning, and Nathan and Lauren, I know they were home with you the whole time.
They were with me. Yeah, we went to the gym, and it was so sweet because all my gym friends knew about it.
Yep.
And so you were trying to figure out how to get me to not look like a bum when I showed up.
Oh, I do.
Because this is where he had my back, ladies. You appreciate this. So for that party, we were going to go to a craft show because I'm, 70-year-old lady in a 35-year-old body and just love a craft show. But he knew I would dress up like half homeless because it was
I said it's a craft
Saturday
show.
night.
And I said, we're going to a nice area. So, you got to dress up a little bit. Got to do the hair.
Photos.
Oh, yeah. I said, we're going to get photos taken at a craft show. And it's kind of close to our house. So you might see some people, you might see some cars there that, are friends of mine. So if you see any friends of yours, no big deal. It's because they're at the craft show.
He didn't say that friend part. Yeah, because that would have totally made me. No, I swear you just didn't say anything about their cars.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice. I don't know. I was oblivious to that.
I said there will probably be some friends of yours there.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't remember that. But I do remember being at CrossFit and looking and being like, oh, Chris, this is where I'm the person. I guess I'm doing this. I said to some of my friends who now I crack up because they were like giddy faced. And I said, I'm excited about this, but I wish I would have known earlier. And they said, what? And I go, we're taking pictures and I don't know what to wear. I sent my friends at the gym 4 or 5 pictures of me in different outfits because I thought we were getting family photos and I didn't have time to collaborate in the clothes.
But weren't you glad I did that and you didn't show up in like a sweatsuit? I
would have literally been in like legit shorts. Yeah, I would have been in like CrossFit clothes.
Yeah.
100%.
So we do that.
Yeah.
We go to the party. It's a good time. We got barbecue from a place called Showcase Barbecue, and it's down in this not great part of Pittsburgh, but that's how I knew it was going to be great because I showed up and this guy just outside just has this homemade rig making barbecue, and it was the best barbecue I've ever had. Just outside of this old dilapidated office building. And I was like, man, this is going to be good. Yeah. So anyway, barbecue. But we bring it to the party, have a great time. And we're there till what, like 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome surprise party. But yeah. But back to the point about comparing your spouse to other people.
Oh, yeah.
So a friend or someone said, my husband would never have done that.
Yeah.
And if you're the husband who hears that like kills you on the inside. Because it matters when your wife believes in you.
Yeah.
It does. It matters a lot. And when they don't think you're the kind of person who would do that, it starts to affect your own identity. Then you start to think, well, am I not that kind of person? Mm-hmm. And then you're just in this constant loop of feeling shitty about yourself. Because you think my wife thinks I'm a piece of garbage, and I feel like I'm a piece of garbage. And then you just keep on going down spiral. So, man, you got to be careful with that.
Yeah. And I don't think people like realize they do it because it's such like a backhanded comment.
Yeah. They don't realize it's that important.
Yeah.
But like little comments have like, just like we do to our kids, like little comments have massive, massive impact.
Oh yeah. That's huge.
And if you say these things, same thing, I talk about that on Rising Father all the time with your kids, like these little comments we make to them that we don't think about Like you just say, oh, whatever it might be, some little backhanded comment to your son if they do something bad, and he might think about it all night.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do the same thing to your husband or wife 365 days in a row, and that just becomes the way you talk to each other.
Yeah.
But when you're around people like couples who are just used to talking to each other that way, it's very apparent that they do that, because it'll stick out to you if you don't do that, but to them it's just normal. It's like if your house is always dirty, it's normal to you. Your house is just always dirty. It doesn't make it doesn't
Our house always dirty.
I don't know. It's passive aggressive. If no one cleans your house, but no, if your house is always dirty, it just kind of blends in. But then if you go to someone else's house and your house is clean, and you're like, man, this house is dirty, but the person who lives there is like, yeah, it's just my house. It's what we're used to.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's the same way if you're just used to talking to each other in a bad way.
That's completely true. I also think we need a cleaning lady because ours isn't very good.
Yeah. And someone cut the grass.
No, but you're totally right. Like those daily habits, like we all have daily habits anyway. Like wake up, go to the gym, you wake up at a certain time, you do your workout. I mean, even if it's not like big things, we all have a habit. You brush your teeth, you do your hair, you take your shower, whatever it is in your daily habits that you do, they just become innate and you don't think about them anymore. Like, you're going to wake up and you're going to brush your teeth. You don't think about brushing your teeth. You just do that.
Unless you're Nathan.
Seriously. Yeah. We have to put that on his daily checklist, but he'll get there one day. But, like I wake up to work out in the morning at 5 and I'm still sleeping, but I literally am so used to going through the motions of brushing my teeth, putting my socks on, putting my pre-workout in the thing. Like, I don't even have to think about it because I made that habit. And it's the same thing with like how you communicate with your spouse. Like, you don't even think about how you talk to each other because that's just how you are. And the only time that you super think about it is a lot of times, like if you're going to tell them something new, some sort of news, maybe something you don't want to share with them, maybe something you're excited to share with them, something that's like out of the ordinary, which is the same thing as any of your habits because they're not part of it. But, just that body language you have with your spouse, and if you like roll your eyes when they annoy you, or like make a certain face or something, like all those little things are habitual, that you didn't do that all the time. Like, you started doing that at some point, and you kind of have to figure out that you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, it's like, okay, as a spouse to be like you call me out on my shit sometimes. And that's one thing I love about you, though, because like, don't get me wrong. Like, I know when I get a compliment, you like full blown mean that compliment. So I appreciate every compliment you give me, because it's not like don't give me compliments. You give them to me often, but I know you mean it. Do you know what I mean? You don't just like say shit. But like, if I'm being an asshole, you literally will call me out on it. And I hate it in that moment, but then I like later on am grateful for it. You know what I mean? Like, here, because I don't want you guys to think that we think we're perfect, because we're not.
We're not.
That's not why we do this.
Not at all.
I mean, I'm close to it, but close. But I will share a downfall that I'm still working on, and I feel like it's like
open up, embedded, be vulnerable,
embedded in me. I hope someone else on here can relate. If I'm in a annoyed mood or a bad mood, I get in this cleaning rage. And it's like common. My son even knows about it. And he said to me, I will tell you, I think on Thursday, I got in a cleaning rage this past Thursday.
Okay.
I picked him up from jiu-jitsu. I was annoyed about something that was actually not important. And I came home, and in my mind, I needed the house to be literally so clean. I needed to mop the floors. I needed all these things. So I set the game plan out in the car, and I say to the kids, I'm not being mean or anything. I just say, like, they like to know the game plan when I pick them up from jiu-jitsu. Who's taking the shower first? We have a whole routine. And I say, we have a plan, but we have a change in the plans. And they said, okay. I said, I need your help. And they said, okay. And I go, we need to have the house clean. And no one responded to me. Nothing was said. So I go, did you hear me? I'm going to need your help. We need a house clean. And I could feel my blood pressure rising because I was getting my rage cleaning mode. I could feel it. It's like another person comes out of me that all of a sudden is crazy with cleaning. And my son said, Mom, I told you I'd help you. Are you getting in a crazy cleaning mode? And I at first was taken aback, but I just started laughing because it was so true. I was like, yeah. And then it grounded me though, because he called me on my shit a little bit. And we did. We came home and we cleaned, but we blasted music while we did it. We made it fun. But, I learned from that moment because in times past, I've been in a cleaning rage mode, and my son would clean out outside on the patio. It was great. Well, I just mopped the floors, and he walks in on my mopped floors, and I can't help it. I'm pissed because I just did all this stuff and he walks. So I yell at him and now he feels bad. But meanwhile, he had just helped me. And then I feel awful that I acted like that. You know what I mean? And I'm a human. I do those things. And I remember that day specifically, and you like called me out on it. And it like hit me deep. But it wasn't like Chris is a jerk because you called me out on it.
What did I say? I don't remember.
I don't remember. You just said like, you basically called me out that I was being mean. And I remember like being really pissed at first, but then I like reflected as I mopped and was like, I'm being an asshole. You know what I mean? And I felt really bad because you were right, but it had nothing to do with like our family, and I wasn't annoyed at anybody. I realized that when I get into cleaning rage mode, I've realized after years of learning myself, it's when I feel like I lost control of something. So like in my life, it could be just the tiniest thing where I just feel like, I don't know, like guests are coming over, or I have to do this big important thing and I feel like I have no control. The only thing I can control is what I can do. And one thing I can do is clean the house, because when things look good to me, I feel better. I can work better when the house is clean. So it has nothing to do with other people. I know it has to do with myself. So I have to learn from that and say like, I'm acting this crazy way because I have a problem right now that I need to address. But, it's okay. Like, I didn't realize I did that. But until like, I was about to have that crazy moment, and Nathan literally called me out on it, but he called it out at the perfect time because it didn't start yet. And like, you need to be able to call your spouse out, and he made it funny. So I was laughing.
Yes.
But like, that's important. You know what I mean? To be able to tell your spouse those things. And you can be upset at first when they tell you something you don't like to hear.
Yeah.
But like, you have to be able to also have that personal growth moment where you go like, you know what? I am being kind of a jerk.
Yeah. You have to have the balls to tell the other person that they need to improve.
Yeah.
Because it's tough to do it, and it's tough for the other person to hear. But it's something that I know a lot of guys would never do.
Yeah.
I would say most guys I know that are in relationships would never call their wife out on any behavior.
Oh, I agree with you.
I don't know why. I know why, but
you don't have to go there.
Yeah, and it's something that like is hard to do, but after you do it, there's growth for both of you. Like if I do it to you or you do it to me, it's hard for me to do it, but like if you actually love the other person, you want to see them improve.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have a sick child and or a child that's obese, and like you see them just shoving their face with candy, are you going to not tell them to stop eating candy because it's going to make them upset? It's like, no, you're going to say, don't do that, or you could die early. Like, it's important. Same thing when you're talking to your spouse. It's like, you need to stop these behaviors, or it's like corrupting you on the inside. Like, if you actually care about someone, you have to be willing to tell them the hard things. And yes, sometimes it's okay it's not like if you have a perfect marriage, you're never going to fight or get angry at someone. another skill that we need to get better at is being okay, not being happy with each other. Sometimes you're not going to be happy with the other person.
Are you not happy with me right now?
No, I'm kidding. But sometimes you're going to be upset with the other person, and you have to let it be. I feel like we have to be better at letting it be just a natural thing. That's
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just upset at someone. It's okay. The time will pass, the moment will pass, and then you just go back to being normal, and you just make it a natural cycle, not something that like you think of because I'm upset. That means there's a flaw in our marriage right now. That means there's this deep thing. It's like, no, sometimes it just happens. Sometimes it could be a physical thing, like it just low dopamine state, or you're hungry, you're tired, you're stressed out, whatever, you feel like you're in control.
Yeah.
And you get angry at the other person, or maybe they deserve to be mad at, but you're not. No one's perfect. It's like you and me are not perfect within ourselves, so we're going to make mistakes. So you will get mad at me when I screw up or do something disappointing. It could happen. And when that happens, it's like you have to take a reckoning of your marriage at that point. Just like, yeah, it happened. Now we work through it.
Yeah.
And now we grow from it and we keep on moving. Just like if I fail personally at something, like me and my men's group, we all try to wake up at a certain time, keep the time, work out, do our macros. If we mess up, we can't let it like derail our entire day.
Yeah.
And affect our identity. Like that's what I'm getting at is we can't whenever I mess up and I break a promise to myself, like if I say I'm going to wake up at 4 and I wake up at 7, I can't let that completely define my identity.
Right.
Same thing with our marriage. Like whenever we get in a fight or mess up, can't be the defining moment for our marriage.
100%.
It just has to be like, how do we respond to it? How do we improve? And then we have to have principles, which I guess we could work on developing also. It's like we have principles for ourselves, principles for our marriage. Like what will we never do to each other? What will we never say to each other? So no matter how we're feeling, no matter what happens, we just abide by those principles.
Yeah. I mean, that's really good because I think a lot of people don't have those in place. And I also think too that like a lot of, especially people that have been together for a long period of time that kind of know how to press each other's buttons, can have that fight and exactly the thing to say to just hook, line, sinker, almost to like win the fight. You know what I mean? And, I think some people love doing that so that they can feel like, well, I came out on top, when really there's like, no one should win anything. You learn from each other, but like you learn, like I feel like we know each other so well that we know what those buttons are, but we just don't press them anymore. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not worth it to, and you know what I'm saying though? Like I know that if I wanted to make you so angry right now, I don't know why I'd want to, but if I did, I could do like XYZ and get you so heated. But like that brings no like joy, success, anything to your relationship, So like when you know each other so well, you kind of have to get to the point like when you are fighting or arguing that you have to like have some sort of principle. And I guess you could say in a way where it's like at the end of the 15 minutes that we're arguing or fighting or however long it lasts, like at the end of the day, we're still in love with each other. We're still married. We want to fix that. Like there's nothing more that I hate. Like I hate turmoil in any way. Like even I think like I know what we were talking about before. Like if I know you're like dissatisfied with me or like something, it kills me inside. And I'm like the little kid that's like
overbake the chicken.
but no, but I will be like up your butt, like, hey, do you like my new shirt? Like, like, cause I don't like that tension. Like I just don't do tension well at all. So I want to fix it immediately. Like anytime something's bad, like my goal is just to fix it right away. And I know that is sometimes like not what you want because you're like, just give me 10 minutes. I'm going to be over it in 5 seconds. You know what I mean? And like,
yeah. And then that starts to annoy me.
Right.
Because Nathan does that. He has your personality a little bit where if he knows he's in trouble, he'll be up my ass.
Yeah. Sorry. That's for me.
Yeah.
And Lauren needs alone time, which is you.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, but don't worry. They have a lot of my good traits too. But, you know, like, it's like so true though. Like, you just have to kind of feed off each other and like realize like what each other needs. But at the end of the day, like, I just want to fix whatever that argument was over. I just want it to be cleared. And so, like, if you're going to press each other's buttons, you're doing so much more damage in that argument than just the argument. Like, now it's like this huge emotional thing that didn't need to be. You know what I mean? And now it's even messier to fix. So I don't know. Like, you just got to kind of learn how to communicate even when there's like a crisis or a chaotic moment in hand.
And I think this is the communication topic is so big. We should do a second podcast we'll do a part 2 for communication. And we'll talk about whenever there's a crisis, do you lose your values and your principles and your standards? And do you just completely melt down and stop the way you talk to each other?
Yeah.
And maybe for next time we can come up with some of our own standards and principles of how we will talk to each other, how we will not talk to each other, and we can share those.
Yeah.
But for our part 2 for communication for the Rising Marriage podcast, number 2, we'll talk about when crisis strikes and chaos happens, what do you do in terms of talking and communicating to your spouse? Because we've been in good and bad situations ourselves where we've done it, and we've also seen other people react well and poorly in that situation also.
Yeah. And it's part of life, so it can have its own podcast.
So thank you, everyone. This was a lot of fun for us. This is kind of like a date night for us. We don't really get to talk to each other this much. This is actually a lot of fun.
It actually is.
So if you want to communicate better with your wife, start a podcast.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for everyone that's a listener. We value you, and we're so happy that we can talk to you guys about this and kind of share our life. We're fine doing that. And then we're going to try to do these once a week, and I'll put it out on the Rising Father channel. At some point, we might have a dedicated Rising Marriage channel to put this stuff out. But for now, we'll put it out on the Rising Father channel. So thank you so much for watching episode 1, and we'll be back with episode 2 next week.
Bye. Thanks, guys.